The comms would have been easy enough. Um, Smuggled out. I can even illustrate it to you. Here on a bit of paper, like, you could have wrote it. H5, OC, blah blah blah. A, a,
And the message got through just on your tobacco paper?
yeah, of the protest.
But how physically did you smuggle that out? Because they strip searched you.
Well, all you had to do was a bit of thing like that there. It could be done on a thing. You lodged it in your anus, which was easy enough, or you could have put it actually into your mouth. And you could have kissed a woman on the visit or whatever, but you could have got it that way, or if they were passing it into you, you could have stuck it down, stuck it up your rectum, and then you could have took it in, and that's the way the game was sort of played, in that respect. But the thing about it was, there actually was sort of directions sort of going on, but I think the inevitability, even with directions and even with everything else, is like giving orders from a helicopter. We were actually the foot soldiers on the ground, I suppose, so you wouldn't have really expected 100%. There was obviously difference of opinions, but I would say it did have it had, of course, it had a significant effect on the organisational thing, and it was like keeping the family together too. That was another aspect of it, you see, and but lo and behold, there was obviously as it shouldn't happen, but it does happen. Is somebody goes off it, and there could be a certain amount of, you're letting the farm down and all that there. Now, we weren't psychiatrists, we weren't psychologists, we weren't doctors or anything else, but obviously there was other things coming in to being in that situation. It doesn't take you to stretch your imagination too far to see what happened, and I think the ones that were going off it, they were still comrades and all that there, because obviously it was like what you would call a sort of a roll call. We were getting watched. It was like they knew how many was obviously in the jail. It was a prison, and they knew there was so many gone off, so many gone on. It was like what you would call sort of leaving the field of play, if you know what I mean. It was like walking off the field. It was like leaving a post.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's I think the simplification or simplified is sort of the best way. But the crux of the matter was when I came over to H8, that was the first destination, and I think you could obviously see, even though I was wearing my own clothes, with there was a degree of dignity even in wearing your own clothes. But you could obviously see when you came into H8 and all that there, you were in the mix again, and you could see obviously this wasn't going to work out, and because it was like trying to add apples and oranges and bananas, we were separate components, probably bearing the same fruit, I suppose, but in different ways. But you could see that wasn't going to work. So I think probably one of the key demands, which we didn't get, was segregation. And the thing about it, but it stuttered on and it stuttered on until when I reached McGilligan, we were attacked by the UVF, and we were attacked by the UDA, and after that there was a sort of what you would call enforced segregation in the thing. But to emphasise the point, I think I think all the organisations, whoever they are, no matter what way you look at it or how maybe vanity you might think of one another, that is what was, I think, what was needed, what was wanted, on which we didn't get. And the thing about it was, there was still a campaign going on the outside. And by the time I got out in '83, there was you could smell the air. There was still a fair bit of respect for you coming off the plank because they knew you were a blanket man, and there was still a bit of it. But I think the underbelly of it was missed out, and the hero worship and all that there was all right, getting your hands shaked and blah blah blah. That was all right, but I don't think what was spelt out was just that men were sick, they were in a bad way, blah blah blah, and all that there, and there was sort of the electoral success of Sinn Féin in around that period in 82, 83, and all that there. I think there was a bit of I think a lot of Republicans probably thought they were on the buck's back, but they weren't really on the buck's back. Things were getting better, but not that better. And so you had although to this day the hunger strike, and rightly so, has been put on a pedestal and all that there. But having said that there, it's a big world inside, but it's a bigger world outside. And the reality was you were back to bread and butter again. You had to try and get a job. You had to get this. People knew you were in jail. Blah blah blah. There was a sort of what you would call a confusion, probably up until I would imagine. I think you had the Hume Adams meeting, and then you had obviously you had the Good Friday Agreement. Before that, there you had the split in Sinn Féin in 1986 in Dublin, and you had.
Can I stop you there? When you said men were sick when they came out, was it just mentally they weren't coping?
I would say so. I would say so. Even when I came home again, I was afraid to go near the cooker. My reflexes were bad, even on the street weren't bloody good. And, even to this bloody day with machinery, it wouldn't be that, I think. And I
why
think
machinery in particular?
because you were probably, you're probably in a way, you were used to it. It was like free bed at breakfast. That's the only way to explain it. Okay. You get up out of bed, your breakfast was there, your blah, 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 And then there was a lot of other things that were missed out, like there was prisoners out in the garden working, there was prisoners working in this, and all that there. And so it was obvious that...
so your manual skills are gone?
To a degree, but, the thing about it was... I think we were living in a fool's paradise because, even though we hadn't got the demands, there was a structure there, and or whatever where it is, and you had that sort of, and then you see the other fact is that the campaign was still going on. I mean, the loyalists were still shooting, the Republicans obviously were still shooting. You had elections going on the same thing, and you had the sort of inextricably linked openly other hashes that Sinn Féin supported the IRA until the probably when all that stopped. They were coming out with statements saying not announced, not a bullet, and all that there. So you can see from my perspective, a revolutionary organisation had to eat humble pie. So they recognised the police, they went on the policing board. There was the decommissioning. There was what was said even by Bernadette Devlin, I think, or it was surrender and regrant, and so the flesh pots of the empire had sort of loomed large, and so you were back into that situation again, and then you see. You had sort of backslapping. You had people coming up to you. I've had people saying to me, about say if there was something done in Derry, they were coming to me as if I had something to fucking do it because it wasn't Derry or because it wasn't Belfast. That just wasn't the case,
Yeah.
That was people looking on from the outside, and saying, right, they're obviously saying to you, I don't support you, or they were giving you a wee dig. So, like, I think it was outlined. People mistakenly took, because of sectarianism, because of the racist state, they actually sort of thought that because you were a Catholic and because you were a Republican, that Catholicism was inextricably linked to the IRA, which wasn't really the case.
Yeah, you
And
made that in the book. You made that point
yeah,
in your book.
it wasn't really the case. And then you had the introduction. Obviously, there was touts. Obviously, there was informers. Uh, you had all these things that was again. People had to get up in the morning, go to work, go to hospitals, go to this, that, rare families, blah 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 blah. So you could see what way the things was going. So you only have to talk to somebody for a while. They're not Republican.